Now to the unrest on college campuses. Arrests and flashbangs clashes as Los Angeles and UCLA today are the epicenter of the unrest on several university campuses across the country. As college protests intensify at these campuses nationwide, police are dismantling many of these encampments. In Los Angeles, more than 130 people were arrested at UCLA. The LAPD has issued a citywide tactical alert, and police are still removing barricades set up by pro-Palestinian protesters on campus. Police are also clashed with protesters at Portland State University, where the campus is now closed as they clear protesters from the library of that campus. And President Biden has weighed in on all this morning. He said there's no place on any campus for hate speech or violence.
It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest.
ABC News' Zohreen Shah joins us from UCLA with the latest. And ABC News political director Rick Klein is here in Washington with me. So, Zohreen, first, what a scene at UCLA. Frightening in some ways. Tell us about it and what the current state of order and of the demonstrations are there.
No, Terry, I think you're absolutely right to say frightening. I mean, it was to a lot of these students. I mean, you had flashbangs going off throughout the night. I mean, if you look behind us now, it's a much calmer, much different scene. You have you have the cleanup crews out here cleaning up this tent area. I don't see any tents in place anymore. And actually, beyond that, it's the building over there, you see a lot of vandalism out there as well. A lot of people hoping that that will, in fact, get cleaned up today as well. Those students, 132, actually, we don't know if they're all students, so young people, we should say, arrested overnight. You have some faculty who are with them. We've been texting with them, saying that they are, in fact, helping them right now. But just quite a scene over here. And again, very different from last night when it was, in fact, frightening for a lot of students.
Yeah, and Zohreen, you just mentioned outsiders coming. Look, this is a national issue. People are passionate about it, but have the police in L.A., because police in New York said a lot of the protesters, maybe most of them that were arrested the other night, non-students. How about in L.A.? What have you heard?
Yeah, and not just what I've heard, Terry. We were out here on Sunday during that big rally at UCLA. There were a lot of people were not students here. We don't actually have the breakdown, but we are hearing doubt casted on both groups that there are a lot of non-students. A lot of people saying, how did the students on the pro-Israeli side get so much gear that they had stocked up and so much in this tent area? A lot of people criticizing the folks on the pro-Israeli side as well, saying, how is the stage up here, this massive stage, and a lot of the stuff that they had in place on Sunday as well. But unfortunately, we just don't have those breakdowns yet on how many were students and how many were not.
Got it. But it does feel like there was some outside influence on what has been going on there as elsewhere. Zohreen, thank you. Rick, on politics, we finally heard from President Biden. It seems like he hasn't wanted to talk about this. No. What do you make of that?
I think he's hesitating before making a statement like this today, but I would hazard a guess that he's where most Americans are on this, to say, yes, there's a right to free speech. That doesn't give you a right to occupy a building or to impede someone else's ability to go to class or, for that matter, to spew anti-Semitic hate speech. And I think for President Biden and the White House, the Biden campaign, they have tried to resist the notion that what's going on campuses is emblematic of a youth movement nationwide. Their view is this is a small portion of people who are even young people in college to begin with, and even among those college students, that most people are just going on about their lives. They're looking at final exams and finishing their papers, and they're worried about a job market, perhaps, or student loans. There's other things on their minds than Israel-Hamas, and that if this is lumped in as just a political challenge to Joe Biden, that misreads this moment. Now, whether they're right or not, we're not going to know for some time, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that what's going on in these campuses is not necessarily the all-consuming political issue that it might appear to be. It doesn't look like we're in a 1968 type environment where all you need to know is just this anger that's boiling over is everything that's animating politics.
And a big difference, 1968 was about the Vietnam War, where many young people were on the line to go and be drafted and fight. I want to ask about young people, that youth vote so crucial to Democrats' chances. and whether this is really going to change the equation.
Well, look, I think two things can be true at the same time. One is that this is primarily an issue inside the Democratic Party. Most of the people that are out there making noise and angry about this policy that the United States has are Democrats, or likely Democratic voters, the people that Joe Biden needs to be back in. But the other thing is that's true is that we are 6 months away from the election. We're a little more than 6 months removed from the events of last October as well. We don't know where this is going to be in people's minds and people's consciousness. That you can imagine a scenario where this kind of builds through the summer and becomes a big show at the conventions, including the one in Chicago. Speaking of 1968, you could also imagine a world where this is kind of more of a back burner voting issue, and it's going to be important to some people, but that people are going to be voting on a women's right to choose, on the economy, on inflation, on immigration, on crime. I think where the real danger here isn't specific to Israel-Gaza. It's that these images that we're seeing are kind of emblematic of what of Donald Trump's argument. This is about lawlessness. This is about chaos. This is about Joe Biden's America. That, to me, is more dangerous than anything specific to Israel. And
just one thing on Trump. So he's saying that we need law and order. And you made an excellent point. Look, these are small number of people relative to the vast numbers of people, even at Columbia or UCLA, and certainly to the student population nationwide. They're passionate, they're organized, they're determined. And yet, Republicans looking at these images say, call out the National Guard. Right? A lot of these protests that are happening, the ones we don't put on camera, are pretty what free Americans should do.
It's perfectly legitimate to do, and there's a long history on college campuses and around the country. And it's great that we live in a country that allows this to happen. As President Biden said today, it is the minority of campuses that have erupted into these kind of clashes. And I think, calling in the National Guard would probably make things worse.
Yeah, certainly for Biden, certainly politically as well as otherwise. Rick Klein, thanks very much.
Thanks,
good to see you. And Zohreen Shah as well. Thank you for that report. You're reporting from California. Appreciate it.